It's an immense pleasure and honor to welcome to Living Histories Professor Ashley Carter. Please tell us about Living Histories.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on Living Histories. I'm Ashley Carter, and I'm a professor of physics at Amherst College, which is a small elite liberal arts college in Western Mass, and it only has undergrad students. I'm here to tell you about my living history. And if I could have an inner title, it would be How Peer Pressure, Living in a Frat House, Taking a Cosmo Quiz, and Getting Lost in Boston Can Change Your Life. So there's one way to tell my living history, and it's the story I usually tell. It's how I majored in physics and engineering physics at the University of Michigan, studied biophysics at the University of Colorado, where I got my PhD, did a quick postdoc at Harvard, and then have been teaching undergraduates at Amherst College for the last 15 years. And while this is the story, it's not the real story. So the real story starts out with me as a young girl who likes math and science and being the center of attention. I watched A Brief History of Time, which is a movie with Stephen Hawking, and I was just blown away. Physics was so cool, it was awesome. And so I started telling people that I was going to be a physicist, but I kept telling them that I was going to be a physicist just to see their reaction. I would say, "Oh, I'm going to be in physics," and their eyes would get really big. They were like, You want to be a physicist?" I was like, "Yes, me." So when I got to college, I signed up for my very first physics class and at the University of Michigan. And halfway through, I was just failing miserably. And when I say failing, I mean getting a B plus. I had always gotten A's. A is for Ashley, not B. So I thought, why should I continue down this path when things are so difficult? And I wish I could say that that girl dug deep and really worked hard and learned something from that experience, but I didn't. No. One of my friends said, "Hey, why are you taking that honors physics class? Just take the engineering one with 300 people in it. And all you have to do is go to class." And so the next semester, I took the easier physics class with 300 people in it, and I went to class and I did well, and then I just kept going. And my friend said, "Hey, what are you going to do once you graduate college?" And I didn't know. And the friend said, well, that he was going to go to graduate school. And I said, "Oh, I love school too. Why would I want to leave? I guess I'm going to go to graduate school too." So I decided to go to graduate school because he was going. And then another friend said, "Do you want to jump off this bridge with me? It's really fun." And I said, "Yes." And so I was at the University of Michigan. I also jumped off this bridge into the Huron River. And so the lesson is that peer pressure might make you do really amazing things, like jumping off a bridge, but it will also get you to graduate school. Um, so then once I was thinking about graduate school, I realized that I had to do several summer research positions to get in. But I also had all of these grand plans to live in cool places. And so my goal was to get this research position in San Francisco. And I talked to my undergraduate advisor at Michigan at the time, and he got me a position with a professor at Berkeley. But there was just one problem, and that was that there was no housing. And I was like moping around for weeks, and I got this email from the professor, and she had found me a place to live, but it was in a frat house. And so she had asked all around to all of the physics majors, and this is what they had come up with. And so apparently all the physics majors at Berkeley are all male and cool, or maybe frats are not cool at Berkeley. I don't know. I did not ponder the question. I just said yes. And now some of you may be thinking to yourselves, she had these grand plans to live in a cool place, and that cool place was a frat house at Berkeley. Um, I know, I appreciate the irony, but that summer in Berkeley taught me more about how to be a professor than any other time. So here are three of the lessons. One, you have to be able to focus on your work, even when the walls are falling down around you. There's an unidentified stench from the corner that's making you gag, and the music is so loud that the walls are shaking. Um, Two, Sometimes you have to sit and wait in line to use the pay telephone, and the line will only move as fast as it's going to move. And so you might as well have fun while you wait. And three, you have to let people around you do their job on their own timeline to their own standards because you can't take care of 10 guys in a frat house for very long and still sleep. So there are other lessons too. I liken this phase of my life to the book with the title that's like, All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. All I really need to know about being a professor I learned while living in a frat house. But seriously, I learned how to do things very quickly, which is why I was able to write this talk in 2 hours before giving the talk. No, actually, I had a great time that summer, and it really solidified that I wanted to do research and be a physicist. Um, so if you take a job where you have to live at a frat house and you loved the job so much that you would do that again, you know that's the right job for you. So I definitely knew I wanted to go to graduate school. I entered graduate school at the University of Colorado, which is in Boulder. And when I visited in March, it was 70 degrees that weekend, and then it snowed and I was hooked. I loved that kind of weather. I was also very much into tabletop experiments and optics, and they had a great program at University of Colorado. So it was great. Took me only one semester to find my way into the right lab, and it was in biophysics. And I was set. I loved my advisor. I loved the postdoc I worked with. I loved my grad school buddies. I loved the weather. But my personal life was like a little all over the place. And I had this philosophy that to be happy in graduate school, you need at least two out of three of the things to go well. And the three things are weather, your research, and your personal life. Um, so I had already picked Colorado, so I knew the weather was going to be good. And so then it was really about the research and the personal life. But the problem is your research is not going to go well all the time. And so you need your personal life, your support system to get you through those rough research patches. And at that time, my personal life was just in shambles because I was like, oh my gosh, I had this college boyfriend from Michigan, and if he moves to Colorado, then I'll probably eventually marry him, the whole nine yards. And do I want to do this? And so I was just having this crisis. And then I took this quiz in Cosmopolitan. Now, I could tell you that I was not the type of person to get Cosmopolitan magazine and that I just like found it somewhere. And that would be a lie. I absolutely did get Cosmopolitan magazine. I absolutely did want Jennifer Aniston's hair and Halle Berry's beauty routine. But I waded through all of the pimple cream ads and the weight loss pills to get to the good stuff, the true gem, and that's the Cosmo quiz. And that month, the quiz was whether he is right for you or something like that. And there were all these questions that I hadn't thought to ask myself, like, do you like his job? Can you easily reach your career dreams at the same time he does? Is his job financially stable, especially if yours isn't? And I realized my college boyfriend checked off all of the boxes to be able to support my dreams of being a professor while still following his own dreams. He was literally perfect. So thank you, Cosmo. And now, after almost 20 years of marriage, he is still supporting me. And he is one of the big reasons why I was able to do all of the career, be as ambitious in my career as I am. It's because of him. So after graduate school, I started down this very carefully plotted path, this strategic strategery, if you will, to being a professor. Um, okay, so I was going to get a postdoc at a fancy place. I was going to publish a lot of papers. I was going to win a fellowship. I was going to get a great rec letter. I was going to apply over 2 years to like get a professorship. And so I started on the path. I got this postdoc at Harvard. I started working really hard, but I wasn't getting anything done. I wasn't getting any papers. I wasn't winning any fellowships. And I had put all this pressure on myself to do all of these things, and it like wasn't quite working out the way I wanted it to. And I got really depressed. And I don't know if you can tell this or not about me, but I am like pretty upbeat, very energetic. And this is the one time in my life where I was depressed. The other thing about me is that I'm a runner and I usually run every day. So I went for this run and I was thinking about things. And like all of a sudden, I kind of looked up and I realized I was lost. Yes, I was metaphorically lost, but I was also literally lost. But getting lost in Boston is not like getting lost in LA. I was lost in Boston, but I was not in a bad part of town and I wasn't fearful of my life. I was actually running through this amazing park with a beautiful lake and there were trails and sunshine. It was awesome. And I realized I had put all of this pressure on myself to do this one thing this one way, um, to run a particular path. And uh, it just wasn't worth it. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll just do something else. And I started going to all these career panels for graduate students. And and this woman at the career panel was talking about teaching jobs that you could do for just a year while you figure things out. And so she told me about this visiting assistant professorship at Amherst College, and I jumped on it. And now I am a professor at Amherst College. So sometimes things just work out. I don't know if living histories is supposed to have a moral at the end, but if there's one for this history, it's that sometimes peer pressure is good. Sometimes the ridiculous decisions you make in your life, like living in a frat house, can teach you things. Sometimes you'll get really good advice from an unlikely place like Cosmo, and being lost can be a good thing. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Ashley. On behalf of the audience, I'm thanking you. And we have a question that has come in via chat. And others, I encourage you to send me your questions via chat for Ashley as I'm asking this one. Um, you, we don't think you spoke to how you ended up choosing a path in biophysics specifically when you move forward to pursue grad school. So would you please tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I realized I liked collaboration, so I went into particle physics. And then I realized I don't like that much collaboration. Like I like people, not that many people. I wanted to have a tabletop experiment, one that like I could do what I wanted to do with it, but still have others like working with me. And so I thought an optics tabletop experiment would be great. And then there happened to be one in biophysics at the place I went, and I happened to like that advisor. I mean, sometimes it's just that easy. I like a lot of different science, and that one was the one that worked out at the place that I was at that time.
Thank you. For each of the pieces of insights or moral of the story you shared at the end, um, sorry, excuse me, there are scenarios one can imagine which could have turned out differently. So I wonder if you would share some insights about whether you thought through what if the happy ending doesn't work out? How bad will it get?
I mean, if the happy ending doesn't work out for your marriage, it's very bad. Like, and I think people don't think about how your marriage and your personal life are going to affect all of your career decisions, especially if you are on the cultural side of like wanting a family and being, like that usually that's not in the cards for women a lot of the time. Like, you want a family, your husband is supposed to be the breadwinner. You need to move for his job, right? Like having the opposite, like moving for me was very different back then. I think it's still not quite done nowadays, but me being the one to say like, look, I'm gonna go here and you're following me, and him being like, yeah, sounds good. That was really important. And if I had picked somebody else that didn't do that, then I'm sure I would be living a great life with an amazing salary, but I would not be a professor.
Wow, thanks again. In the interest of time, I'm closing